guest. Speaker of this session is Professor R.J. Shah. Sir has completed BE Civil from Maharaja Sayajirao University, Baroda, and pursued master's degree in civil with concrete technology and structural engineering as major subjects. Sir has also attended many courses on different crucial concepts of civil engineering. Sir has spread his vast knowledge as assistant lecturer, visiting faculty and professor in renowned institutes like Vallavidhyanagar, SEPT, MS University, Baroda, Nirma University, and many more. At present, Sir is serving as technical advisor and visiting faculty for postgraduate program on forensic structural engineering of Gujarat Forensic Science University, Gandhinagar. In his contribution to this technical field, there comes numbers of seminars, workshops, winter schools, short courses, and training programs. There are also numbers of technical papers and research works by him. Sir has also contributed with thesis guide of School of Architecture and School of Building Science and Technology. Summing this all, Sir has 59 years of experience as consulting engineering, working in the area of structural engineering, quantity surveying, valuation, investigation of distressed structures and their rehabilitation, and have handled projects for the design and construction, providing residential, public, commercial, recreational, educational, health, industrial, and other facilities, along with design of water structures and underground water reservoir. It's my honor to invite him for this session on damage assessment and evaluation after earthquake disaster. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, before I start, I must thank Dr. Sanghvi for giving me an opportunity to talk to my close colleagues on a subject which is so important as far as our nation is concerned, because about 65 to 68% of the area is prone to earthquake as far as India is concerned. And I think, the most of the problem in most of the cases are that after such disastrous event, uh, what is to be done, how it is to be done, is there any standards that has been developed, or is there any guidelines that you are having which you will try to follow and see that the things are done properly. It is not yet properly done, and therefore this is a very important area which I think we should look into it, and there has to be a training program for the engineers to look into these aspects uh, in such situations. With this introductory remarks, let us start actually the real presentation. The immediate inspection after the disastrous event to inform occupants regarding status of their building, that is, after such disastrous events such as flood, earthquake, tsunami, I think fire on a very large scale, etc., etc. The first task is just to inform the occupants regarding the safety of their building, whether the building is safe, whether it can have restricted use, whether you can enter the building for a very short duration, or certain part of the building is unsafe, or the total building is unsafe. Now, in such situations, Public Works Department and local competent authority quickly, let us say, are getting overloaded and need large technical manpower to complete inspection work within the shortest possible time frame.
Sir,
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
Can you convert it in PPT mode? Just click on F5.
So this is not in PPT mode.
Actually, it is in we can see your PPT, but that is not in presentation mode. So convert it into the full screen mode, presentation mode, by clicking just F5.
One minute.
Sir, just click on F5.
Now F5.
F5, yes, on F5.
Control F5, isn't it?
No, just F5.
Is it fine?
1 minute, sir.
What do you say? Professor Sanghvi?
No, sir. This is not the presentation.
1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. આ પીપીટી નથી, આ પ્રેઝન્ટેશન છે ને, એક જ મિનિટ. આ પીપીટી નથી આવતું, પેલું આવે છે.
पीपीटी सर पीपीटी सर आ रही है, जस्ट उसको प्रेजेंटेशन मोड में कन्वर्ट करना है. सो उसको F5 दबाइए या फिर नीचे नीचे उसका ऑप्शन दिया है.
ना
यस, पीपीटी दिख रही है, वहां पे टॉप में टॉप लेफ्ट में आप देखोगे फ्रॉम बिगिनिंग इट विल बी कन्वर्टेड इनटू द प्रेजेंटेशन मोड स्लाइड शो. तो वो या अदरवाइज आप नीचे भी हाँ प्रेजेंटेशन मोड में कन्वर्ट करो.
Now is it fine? Stop sharing. Sharing. Now. Now can you see?
Yes, sir.
Now it is
Yes,
fine?
sir. It is fine. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much. Dr. Sanghvi, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Now, you see, we were just discussing that immediately after the disasters event, such as, let us say, tsunami, flood, earthquake, fire on a very large scale, etc., etc., the occupants are getting confused, and therefore they would like to know regarding the status of their building, whether the building is safe, restricted use can be possible, short period entry may be possible, then some of the areas may be unsafe, some of the areas may be safe of the building or the premises and unsafe. And in such situations, public works departments and local competent authorities are quickly overloaded and need large technical manpower to complete inspection work within the shortest possible time frame. Now, the problem is here that we do not have trained manpower available at that point of time. And therefore, I think, there are confusions and conflicts which are getting developed. It has been observed that due to lack of definite guidelines and procedures, the decisions regarding safety status of building turn out to be conflicting and confusing to the occupants. Now, this is, I think, the major problem that everyone is facing, and in most of the cases, these are the problems that you are having. Now, the overall objective, now this means that you must have some structured guidelines to inspect the buildings so as to categorize the same. And I think, the final decision is more or less very close to the correct decision rather than conflicting decisions. Because if the decisions are conflicting, and we will just try to see that the people were getting confused, and therefore, even if their buildings were safe for normal loads, they were not entering into the building, which we'll just try to see afterwards. Now, to provide guidelines and procedures for post-disaster safety assessment of various structures, especially buildings for Gujarat, to enable to achieve uniform assessment in terms of damage, that is one, safety of the structure, that is another one, and the labeling category. whether the building is safe, part of the building is safe, unsafe, etc., etc. And development of field manual and training courses for damage evaluators and professionals working as a structural engineers. Now, this is a very important, let us say, area that has to be properly taken care of. But I would like to tell you that enough has not done even within a span of about, let's say, 15 years. So the development of a field manual and a training courses for damage evaluators is very important, and I think this particular program is a part of it. Now, methods for damage assessments that we can have, there are 4 methods that you are having, and that is, I think, the types of the surveys that you are making, which is more or less a visual survey that you have. But I think in case of detailed safety assessment and in case of engineering evaluations, I think only, let us say, your visual inspection will not work. There are so many other things which are to be, let's say, provided for. Procedures consist of initial rapid safety assessment by civil structural engineers. Basically, I personally feel that structural engineers are required with design, construction and maintenance of buildings and other structures. Detailed safety assessment of doubtful or questionable structures. First is the initial rapid safety assessment survey. If you have the doubts, then I think you may have to go for a detailed safety assessment for the buildings which are doubtful, which are questionable, where you will not be in a position to, let's say, decide whether the building or the part of the building is safe or unsafe, or where more information is required for decision making. And for quality control of assessment work done, that means whatever the work that has been done for rapid safety assessment, one should also try to recheck some samples just to see that the decision that has been taken by following rapid safety assessment survey, they are correct or not, or they are very close to or near to correct. Now, engineering evaluation by structural consultant for buildings that cannot be properly evaluated by visual observations only can be also, let's say, done. And therefore, if you just try to go through the, let us say, chart, you'll find that structures, buildings identified for assessment and evaluation. The first is the rapid safety assessment, which is, I think, there are labeling, I think, we could not do labeling during the Bhuj earthquake 2001. But I think, one has to, let us say, work out the labeling, which is categorizing the building, keeping in mind the damage and the safety of the structure. So in case apparently in good condition, you will have a green label where building is inspected safe for service loads. Now this is very important. These buildings that you are talking about are safe for normal gravity loads, normal service loads. Then doubtful conditions, you will have a label with limited entry. And the third one is obviously unsafe building, where the part of the building might have been collapsed, or the whole building might have been collapsed, or there might be some conditions in the nearby buildings where your building is unsafe. So you can say label is unsafe and it is a red label. And then if you have a doubtful condition, then in that particular case, you will have to go for a detailed assessment, wherein you will have a load-bearing structure, You may have a frame structure, that is a concrete frame, steel frame. Now composite construction, geotechnical hazards, non-structural hazards that you are having. And then if you just go with detailed assessment, again you'll have safe but may need repair. The building or the structural and the non-structural members of the buildings are safe, but they need repair. In the second category, doubtful, restricted use, short period entry. Short period entry, will be just to go there, try to collect some precious, let us say, property, and then come out from the, let us say, building. Then the label unsafe, that is the unsafe must be repaired or demolished. And then the moment you will have a doubtful case in this also, then you can go for an engineering evaluation. So actually speaking, there are 3 or 4 different types of the surveys that we are supposed to make before we arrive at a decision whether the building is safe and can be properly occupied or not. And then the assessment methods, you have, as we pointed out earlier, rapid safety, detailed safety, and then I think engineering evaluation, etc., etc. And then I think we can say that what are the objectives of these particular methods, and what are the required technical personnel that you need to let us say see that the things are properly done and things are objectively done, and then what is the probable time required just to go through or just to work out some such survey. Now, in case of a recurrent survey, which is the first survey that you're supposed to do, is to know quickly the area affected and volume of damage occurred at various locations of village, town, city, etc., etc. Then the required personnel are senior personnel of state government departments and of competent authority, preferably qualified engineers, fire department and police department. This is what is required. And the duration of the time will depend on the area that has been affected. If the area is a large area, the duration of the time that is required is quite high. Then rapid safety assessment, the objectives are to quickly quantify the extent of damage and destruction, both in number and amounts, for reporting policy making purpose, which is, I think, the government organizations, can deal with this. To quickly identify the safety of buildings, to establish those that cannot be occupied, which are unsafe, to make those damaged as safe that can be reoccupied, and those that can continue to be fully used, that is safe. Now, this is very important. You are supposed to identify the buildings which are absolutely unsafe. You are supposed to identify the buildings which are safe for the occupancy, etc., etc. And to estimate required number of temporary houses and refuge centers for the displaced people. This is also another objective, to quickly identify buildings that require additional, more detailed investigation by qualified structural engineers along with other consultants if required. That means, those which are, I think, having doubtful conditions, and to label the building to inform the occupants whether the building is safe or it can have restricted use or can have short period entry or the building is totally unsafe. And I think, one has to cordon the building so that no one will be in a position to enter it. Now, the required personnel are senior civil engineers, structural engineers, faculty members working in structural engineering department of engineering colleges, and postgraduate and final year civil engineering and students of architecture can also help. And duration of the time, I think, is, though it has been written about 30 to 60 minutes, depending on the nature of the damage that has taken place, it may take little more or little less time. Then detailed safety assessment to assess the buildings which are found in a doubtful category. You will not be in a position to, let us say whether the building can be occupied or it may not be occupied or it cannot be occupied. In such doubtful categories, I think you will have to, let's say, go for detailed safety assessment. And be identified for restricted use, and then after going through that, probably you will be in a position to say that a certain portion of the building can be used, or one will be in a position to, let us say, have a short period entry to identify the buildings which needs engineering evaluations. That means by going through detailed safety assessment survey, even if there are doubts, then I think you can just identify those buildings, and I think one can say that detailed engineering evaluation is required before you just give a decision to the occupants whether their buildings are safe for occupation or not. To change the label of the building previously provided through rapid safety assessment. Now, there are a number of buildings that you have evaluated, and out of which you can pick up, let us say, some few cases just to check whether the decision that has been taken by rapid safety assessment survey is quite all right or not. Then to categorize the building depending on the severity of damage developed in structural and non-structural elements to assess the extent of damage, which can be linked, if required, for financial help to be given to owners of the buildings. This was also done, immediately after the earthquake, Bhuj earthquake of 2001. They tried to work out a policy to help the people who were affected due to damage of their, let's say, property, to work out the estimated cost to enable to repair and strengthen to restore, and to quantify extent of losses due to building damage. Now, required personnel are senior structural engineer having in-depth knowledge regarding the normal damages one expects in buildings, which I think we'll see in our formats, as head of the team, along with junior civil structural engineer. If required, other consultants also can be made a part of a team. And the duration of the time, which is about 1 to 2 hours, but it may need more time also depending on the damages that has taken place. In case of an engineering evaluation, detailed engineering investigation of damaged buildings involving use of construction drawings, condition survey data, necessary non-destructive and partially destructive testing, and fresh scrutiny of structure to work out the repair and strengthening strategy, to develop the retrofitting strategy for the buildings if required. Then the required personnel is structural engineers who have been trained and have experience and expertise in dealing with evaluation of distressed structures, their repairs and strengthening. If required, other specialists can also be a team member. That means a geotechnical engineer, then probably fire, and some such other discipline, if required, can be involved. And the duration of the time, I think one will not be in a position to say anything about it, but about 1 week or more, depending upon the area and complexity of the building that you are having. Now, if we just try to see building safety assessment classifications. Now you have a label, then you have the color of the label, and then you are having the particulars. So in case of a label, you write down, we'll have the labels. We are having, I think, 4 or 5 types of the labels that we'll go through briefly. Inspected, safe for service loads, no restriction for occupancy and use. Now the most important thing is that safe for service load. Color is green, particulars original lateral load carrying capacity not significantly reduced, but should be checked in detail. No restriction on use or occupancy. That means the building can be occupied. Limited entry, restricted use, short period entry, yellow, orange, dangerous conditions believed to be present, entry by owner as at his own risk is allowed for emergency purposes only, cannot be used on continuous basis, etc., etc. Then unsafe, that is red, extremely hazardous, may collapse, imminent danger of a collapse due to aftershock, absolutely unsafe for occupancy or entry except by authorities, and therefore in such cases the labels are, let us say, provided, or the building is labeled on all entries. If there are 3 entries in the building, on all 3 entries, I think the label will be there. In so many cases, the building will be cordoned. Area unsafe, designated area is unsafe. It must not be entered except by the authorities or by the, let us say, getting the approval or permission from the authorities. Then considerations of structural and non-structural elements of following types of the buildings that we can have: masonry buildings, reinforced concrete buildings, and types of the damages are classified from no damage to total collapse. And now the damage category: structural damage, non-structural damage. No damage is S0, non-structural no damage, and SA, non-structural damage A. Negligible to slight, moderate, very heavy damage, partial or total collapse that you are having. So the damage has been categorized in 2 different categories. One is a structural one, and another one is a non-structural one. And then I think a metric has been worked out just to, let us say, label the building. And in case of masonry structures, the structural damage, that is S0, means no damage, means absolutely no damage at all. S1, negligible to slight damage. No structural damage, slight non-structural damage. Thin cracks, whether horizontal, inclined or diagonal, seen on both faces of masonry walls. Thin inclined cracks at corner of openings, etc., etc. Damage will not affect vertical load carrying capacity of the buildings. That means the building is safe as far as vertical loads are concerned, or as far as gravity loads are concerned. Then moderate damage that you are having. Now see, all these things that I am showing, hair cracks, then the cracks at the junction of the 2 walls, that is at the T junction, cross junction, return angle, etc., etc. All these things can be illustrated through, let us say, visuals during the training program. And I think, unless you have a clear-cut understanding regarding various types of the damages which are taking place, it will be very difficult for you to go through the procedures, to go through the formats, to fill up the formats properly, and to arrive at a conclusion. Such cracks may open up further due to aftershock. Then substantial to heavy damage that you are having, where you'll see moderate structural damage, heavy non-structural damage. The vertical load masonry walls will be affected and can substantially reduce during aftershocks. That means after having the main earthquake, there are chances to have lots of aftershocks, and therefore in these situations, probably, I think aftershocks, you may have substantial heavy damage also, and therefore, even if you have made a survey, I think aftershocks also you should try to go through few buildings. Very heavy damage, that is the separation of walls at return angle, gapping cracks, cannot take even dead load of the structure, possibility of collapse during aftershocks that you are having, partial or total collapse of the buildings. In case of masonry structures, non-structural members, hair cracks in plaster, etc., etc., diagonal or cross cracks in partition walls. I have a couple of pictures which I will be in a position to show you. Then non-structural gapping, diagonal or cross cracks along with the failures of all these things, probably not all, but most of the things we'll be in a position to see some of the pictures and we'll discuss it out. Then reinforced concrete frames, you have no damage, negligible to slight damage, S1, fine cracks in plaster, etc., etc. Damage will not affect vertical load carrying capacity of the building. Then moderate damage, diagonal and vertical hair, fine cracks in columns, etc., etc. That we'll see. We'll see all these things over here. That means you will be in a position to, let us say, and this is what is the matrix that you are having, where on as far as the vertical is concerned, that is non-structural damage that you are having. You have a non-structural damage over here, where no damage NSA, negligible to slight damage NSB, moderate damage NSC, and major damage NSD. And on the x-axis, you have structural damage. No damage. Where is that? No damage as 0, negligible to slight damage as 1, moderate damage as 2, substantial to heavy damage as 3, very heavy damage as 4, and failure, partial or total collapses as 5. And if you just try to see this, all green, safe. Then if you have number 2, that is a major damage as far as the non-structural members are concerned, no damage or negligible damage as far as the structural members are concerned, it will be 2, and therefore you'll have a restricted use for or short period entry. And if you are having this, that means by working out the matrix properly, you will be in a position to understand the present status of the building, and therefore you will be in a position to, let us say, advise the occupants whether they can occupy the building safely or not. Or if there is any doubt, I think the further investigation can be made. This is how the whole matrix was worked out. And if you have a very heavy damage in structural members but no damage in non-structural members, still it is in the category of 4 that you are having. This is how I think one can try to work out a matrix after going through or after having a survey of a building. And then from this matrix, one will be in a position to, let's say, arrive at a conclusion regarding the damage that has occurred in the building and whether the buildings will be in a position to, or occupants or the people will be in a position to occupy the building or not. Then labelings and barricades that you are having. Label to be provided unsafe. Conditions: building in danger of collapse, building in danger from collapse of adjacent structure, etc., etc. One can go through all these things, to be frank, and one will be in a position to, let's say, arrive at a condition, present condition, and then one can just think about providing the label. Then building seems to be of doubtful regarding safety, needs further evaluation, restricted use, short period entry. Building has no apparent safety related damage or etc., etc. Inspected and safe for service loads, or I would like to say gravity loads. In the same way, I think you will be in a position to, let's say, go through lots of such things that you are having. It is very simple, to be frank. The only required thing is that a person who is going as a team member or the main team member must, I think, have a thorough understanding about the damages which are taking place due to any such hazardous event. Then label the structure considering the results of the assessment. Use one of the 4 labels. One is green, yellow, this, and let us say, red. And if you just try to follow the procedures to be followed for detailed safety, for rapid safety, inspect the building from outside. Start observing exterior periphery of the building. Observe to determine the structural system. Now this is very important. And again, here also, you see the technical or I would like to say a structural engineer who is supposed to survey the building must have a definite procedure to go through the building. You see, if the building is there, I will move clockwise. I will just move at the periphery first, and then I will go inside, and then I will go near the stair and the lift, etc., etc. So here is a case where if you just try to find out, inspect the structure for vertical discontinuities. Over here, you can see this vertical discontinuities. Can you see my arrows? Professor Bansal, can you see my arrows which I identify here?
Yes, sir, we can see. Your arrows are visible.
Fine. Inspect the structure for irregular configuration in the plan. That is the L shape, T shape, channel shape, E shape, etc., etc., where you have all the time problems at the corners. Stress concentration, will be developed over here to the maximum, and the failures are supposed to be taken place over here only. So then observe for racking for exterior walls, frames for doors, windows, ventilators, etc., etc. You can just go through this text, will be available. This, I think, whatever the presentation that, I am making will be made available to all the participants. You can just go through, and I think, you will be in a position to understand everything. An inspection of the area nearby building structure for geotechnical hazard. That means, if my nearby areas, my building is quite fine, but the areas nearby, they are not good, then also there are chances to have the problem. Inspect the site for fissures, bulge ground and settlements. In hilly areas, the things are different. Hazardous normally can extend in large area and hence will include more number of buildings. Undamaged buildings in unstable area may be labeled as short period entry. There are chances that the buildings are quite all right, nothing has happened. But I think, still I think, the building have been affected, and therefore, though the building is not damaged, I think, one can think about moving for a short period entry, etc., etc. Then inspection of structural system from inside the building. Now, this is where I think, a structural engineer is required, and therefore, in all such cases, I think, the team leader is supposed to be a structural engineer. If the structural system is hidden by false ceiling or other architectural elements, the same should be removed, etc., etc., has been said. Excuse me. Inspect the vertical load carrying systems, columns, walls, beam junctions. Just try to see horizontal movements of the floors and roofing, etc., etc. Inspect the lateral load carrying systems for residual story, drift, distortion of doors and window frames with broken glass panes. Then inspections for non-structural members that you are having, which I think from inside the building. Observe masonry partition walls, false ceiling, light fixtures, water tanks at terrace levels. We will see some of the things over here, building facade and cornices, etc., etc. And then inspection for other hazards. Lift should not be restarted without inspection. After the earthquake, I think none of the lift should be started without inspection. Observe spills or any leaks in areas of stored chemicals, particularly in case of an industrial area. Examine stairs for structural safety and exist for jammed doors and other obstructions that you are having. You see, the moment you have a jammed door, you'll be in a position to, let's say, realize that there is some shifting, some movement in the wall itself. Complete checklist and label building, that is, label the structure according to the assessment made, such as safe, restricted use, short period entry, etc. Explain the significance of the labels to occupants and advise them accordingly. This is important. Then categorization of buildings for inspection. We can categorize the buildings for the inspections, and this is, I think it is depending on the engineering inputs in terms of design, construction, maintenance during service lives, which includes use of materials, construction techniques adopted, and supervision and inspection provided. And then I think you'll have broad categories of the structures that you are supposed to inspect. Will be non-engineered structures, semi-engineered structures, engineered structures. Now here I would like to say that in case of rural areas and in case of, let's say, semi-urban areas, in most of the cases you will have rural non-engineered, semi-urban probably non-engineered plus semi-engineered, urban areas, as we say that they are engineered, but I would like to, let's say, hesitate in telling that, and I would like to say that they are engineered and semi-engineered structures. Considering the categories, probably you will see that you will have masonry structures, frame structures, etc., etc. Now this is what is the diagonal cracks in a column, which is very serious. Diagonal cracks in a column, very severe, let us say, conditions of the structural member. Columns that you are having, then you will see crushing of concrete, then opening of the lateral ties. That means a very risky condition. These are the various conditions that you may come across while you go for the survey. This is a short column effect that you are having. And here you will see that your lateral tie has opened out. This is the wall. Failure of a wall severe. This is the separation, or let's say at the junction of the column and the beam. Then the diagonal cracks. Then balcony slab collapse. Minor, this is the stair flight. All stair flights were affected in this particular building. This is what is the situations of a stair flight. A very interesting story. This is at Bachau, where a structural engineer who gave a report was telling that the stairs are non-structural members, and I think have little cracks, nothing more than that. Just to stand, just to see that the case is, let us say, standing, in the High Court. Total collapse, non-structural damages. Can you see this? One minute. See. See, the whole wall has been shifted out. See, the wall has been shifted out. Same is the case here. The peripheral wall has moved out by this much amount. Roofing. overhead water tank. In case of load-bearing structures, of course, this is due to corrosion and it has increased. There are old buildings. Then rapid safety assessment. Now, detailed safety assessment, load-bearing structures, reinforced concrete structures, steel frame structures, etc., etc. Depending on the locality in which you're supposed to make the survey, sometimes you may find one type of the buildings only. Just like in case of Ahmedabad, if you go to city, real city, you'll find most of the structures are wooden structures. There are so many cases where you'll get jackass. There are cases where you may get like stone floors, etc., etc. Now, your rapid safety, I think is having the inspection team, type of disaster, then location type, etc., etc. You will find that this is the whole form has been divided into: A is the inspection team, B is the type of disaster, C is the location, and D is the assessment, final assessments that you are having, which gives all necessary details so that within a very short period, I think a guy who is involved in the survey work will be in a position to fill up all these things. And this is, I think, types of constructions that you are having. It all depends, mind well. And here is an assessment: collapse, partial collapse, etc., etc. Beams, see, none, minor, moderate, severe, and so on and so forth. And I think you can have sketches, photographs, etc., etc. can be provided. And this is overall observation: structural, non-structural, that is no distress, negligible, moderate, substantial to heavy, etc., etc. in case of non-structural. And then I think you will see that recommendations will be there: inspected and safe for service loads, no restriction for occupancy, short period entry, restricted use, unsafe, etc., etc. And this is what it is. That considering the damages that has taken place in the structural and non-structural members of the building, I think you can arrive at a decision whether the building is safe, can be occupied, can be partly occupied, is to be demolished, or I think is doubtful. And this is what is the labeling that you are having. Now, in case inspected and safe for the service loads, green placard; restricted use, yellow placard; limited restricted entry, orange placard; and unsafe, red placard that you are having. And this is how the whole thing has been. And now this is important, mind well. Inspected exterior only, inspected exterior and interior only. Now mind well, this is having a legal, let us say, issue. If your certificate that you have given will say that the building can be occupied, if the people are occupying the building and something goes wrong somewhere, then who is responsible? And therefore, for giving a placard or for giving a certificate, one has to be very careful that the buildings which are absolutely safe, you have to write down that the building is safe for gravity loads only, because you have not checked anything other than that. This is the restricted use, short period entry. See, entry for emergency purposes, damage assessment, making temporarily safe, removal of essential business records, removal of valuables, etc., etc. And then I think it is unsafe. Entry is not possible on specific authorization in writing from competent authority, etc., etc. It is unsafe and therefore it might have to be demolished. Then the detail, it is on the same line. One can think about going for this, but mind well here, you'll find that, can you see this? See, structural damages, is it reinforced masonry, etc., etc., all these things. If it is a masonry structure, thickness of the walls. See, the format has been worked out in such a way that within a very short period, you should be in a position to collect all necessary data that is required to decide regarding the occupancy of the building. And therefore, all necessary, even in case of cracks, thin cracks, gapping cracks, stepped cracks, etc., etc., partition walls, then your floors, all floors that you will have, then non-structural members, doors, windows, glazings, water supply, drainage, electrifications, etc., etc., that you are having. So again, same matrix, and you will be in a position to deal with this. Then this is for this. The formats are more or less very close to each other. But the only, let us say, point that I would like to, let us say, bring to your notice is that unless the engineer in charge, who is in charge of the team, is thoroughly conversant and trained in this area, it will be very difficult to have an objective assessment regarding the status of the building. These are all beams. See, if you just try to see, you have columns, slabs, beams, stairs, walls, etc., etc. Again, same thing, same. Now, you see, for steel structures, that means, you can work out, a format accordingly, depending on the type of the buildings that, you're supposed to go through, or you're supposed to, let us say, come across. And again, the same, let us say, way in which, you will be in a position to, let us say, talk about the safety status of the building, considering the damage in non-structural and structural members. This is what I was thinking to discuss as far as damage assessment is concerned. And I think, this was for the first time in India that such damage assessment formats and the procedures were developed for Gujarat Disaster Management Authority after the earthquake of 2000, Bhuj earthquake of 2001, and I think this was in collaboration with ADPC, Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, and the SAPT University was involved, in this assignment, and accordingly, we could contribute and could work out, having lots of references from from ourselves itself and from the Western world. And I think these formats, I think Gujarat, that is the Disaster Management Authority, probably was thinking to, let's say, see that these types of the procedures and the formats are provided throughout India. That is what we could see. if you have any question now, Professor Sanghvi. Professor Sanghvi.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And if there are any questions pertaining to this, I think we can keep it open, or else I have another, let us say, presentations where an institution was involved immediately after the earthquake, which can be done. And after that, if you would like to have question answer, we can have question answer or discussions. Dr. Sanghvi, it is up to you to decide now.
Sir, let's go with the another presentation, and at the end we'll go for the question answering.
Okay. Yes, then within another half a minute, I'll put up my presentation over here. So let us continue with that.
Take your time. Okay.
પછી ને મારું બીજું પેલું છે ને તે મૂકવાનું છે.
કયું આવ્યું છે?
આ જે છે ને આ આપણે કર્યું અને આપણે ના ફેકલ્ટી પ્રોગ્રામ
પોસ્ટ
ક્યાં છે? હા હા બસ આ એ મૂકજો.
એમને પૂછ્યું શેર સ્ક્રીન ઓન છે? શેર સ્ક્રીન ઓન છે?
હા શેર સ્ક્રીન ઓન છે પણ આ કરવું
દેખાય છે?
હા.
Yes, presentation. Now perfect.
Is it quite all right?
Yes, perfect, sir.
So should I start?
Yes, you can, sir. Okay. We are able to hear.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Now see, what happened, I'll just talk about a little bit history. That immediately after the earthquake of 2001, I think this was for the first time in the history of India where urban area was affected to the maximum during the earthquake. And therefore there were lots of problems which I think people faced. What happened that the moment the earthquake took place, I think so many buildings in Ahmedabad itself partially or totally collapsed. And I think as far as the Bhuj is concerned and that Kutch is concerned, we all know that what happened. Now actually speaking, what happened that after the earthquake took place, people came out from their buildings and they were not going back to the building, even if the buildings were absolutely safe for normal vertical loads. And therefore, in Ahmedabad itself, there were about 40,000 people who were more or less, in a refugee camp. And therefore, the pressure as far as the competent authority is concerned and the pressure as far as the state government was concerned was huge. This was one, let us say, aspect that was to be kept in mind. The second thing was that immediately after the earthquake took place, from the second or the third day, private professionals, that is one, the engineers of the competent authority, that is Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, and AUDA, that is the second one, and the organizations like Gujarat Institute of Civil Engineers and Architects, they started working on this to help the people. But what happened, that the moment they started all these things, their decisions were conflicting, and therefore the occupants or the building owners, were confused. This was one. And therefore, I think competent authority, that is Ahmedabad Urban Development Authority and Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, thought to see that some independent authority is going through or is surveying the buildings and give their unbiased opinion regarding the status of the building. And accordingly, I think, at that point of time, Mr. Kailas Nathan was the municipal commissioner, and he approached the SAPT University to look into the matter and to see that, some guidance is given so that whatever is the confusion that, we are having can be, let's say, removed. And accordingly, the work was assigned to us to look into this. And I think, there was a Deputy Municipal Commissioner, Mr. Vyasa, and we discussed this particular matter with Vyasa, and I said that what is the urgency? Of course, I was knowing that it is absolutely urgent. He said that, sir, the work is to be completed yesterday. That is the urgency, which probably, you might not be in a position to appreciate. Well, then, we thought that how to do and all such sorts of things that, we are having. Keeping this background in mind, and we'll just try to discuss that how an academic institution can, let us say, get involved in a technical work, which is, I think, a social-based technical work that, you are having. So let us try to go through this briefly and try to understand. Now, actually, post-earthquake rapid safety damage assessment, I think, we were having the introduction, objective of the survey, methodology, and the conclusions which were drawn. Now, if you just try to see, Bhuj earthquake of 26th January 2001 was the first damaging earthquake to hit an urban area of India, causing structural damage of various intensities to multi-story buildings, including the collapse of some of them, along with loss of human life, which was substantially on a very, very high side. As reported, about 70 buildings were fully or partially collapsed, out of which 21 buildings were investigated by expert committee appointed by Gujarat High Court, wherein also, I think, one of the Professor Ravi Lavingya was involved, and he also worked as one of the expert member of the committee. Then about 752 people died in Ahmedabad only, which was highest in any of the town or city of Gujarat except Kutch region. First few days after the earthquake were spent on rescue and relief operations, while total confusion prevailed regarding buildings that were still standing. That means people were not sure about the status of the buildings which were standing. Private professionals in their individual capacity, engineers of competent authority, and members of Gujarat Institute of Civil Engineers and Architects, as I pointed out, started quick survey work to identify the damage and its severity to inform the occupiers accordingly. You see, the objective is to inform the occupier that whether his building is safe and they can occupy or not. This was the only objective of this particular survey. But most of them being civil engineers, without any experience and expertise to evaluate such damaged structures and as no structured guidelines were developed and followed. Now this is important. To have objective assessment, their views in so many cases were conflicting and hence residents were confused regarding the status of their building. Due to such confused status, large number of residents were scared and did not stay in the buildings, even though in so many of such buildings damage was either nil or was only in non-structural elements and took shelter in temporary camps provided. Now see, I'll tell you that we are having experience. If I will go and I will see a hair crack in a wall, partition wall, I'll say that don't worry, nothing is going to happen, you can stay over here. If another gentleman who will go and he will see the hair crack and he will say that this is very risky, you can't stay even for a minute. This was the situations that they were having. Hence, immediate task was to restore the confidence of residents about safety of buildings by carrying out a quick survey of the buildings which were still standing. To overcome the confused status, local authorities thought to get the damage assessment done by an independent agency to get the true picture about the status of the buildings and advise accordingly. SAP was consulted and requested to carry out damage assessment for multi-story. Now we were also having a very limited, let us say, scope. It was a frame structures and load-bearing residential structures, ground plus 5 and ground plus about 9 story or so. And the objective was set up for damage assessment to be conducted, which was to advise residents regarding the status of their building to enable to them to occupy if the buildings are safe. This was the only limited objectives that we were having in the mind, and we were very clear in our mind what we were supposed to do. Objective was to be fulfilled as quickly as possible due to mounting pressure on state government and I think competent authorities. As time was short, trained technical manpower required was more, and assessment of damage was supposed to be absolutely fair, consistent and objective. It was decided to work out uniform criteria to be used. Now this was the first thing, that how to go about all these things. Time was less, technical manpower was further less, and the things were very urgent, and therefore it was decided to work out a criteria or to work out a methodology to survey the buildings and to opine accordingly. Survey sheets for damage assessments were worked out, and criteria for categorization damage for frame structures from G0 to G5 were modified under the able guidance of Dr. A.S. Arya, Emeritus Professors of IIT Roorkee. To have uniform assessment, it was decided to have oriented. Now see, the engineers who were supposed to go to site of work to survey, they were not knowing anything about, let us say, damages that has taken place. They were not trained, in this particular area. And therefore, if they are supposed to go there on site of work and let us say try to fill up the format and come out with a conclusion, it is difficult unless you have some structured guidelines worked out for some such work. So to have uniform assessment, it was decided to have orientation program to be conducted for senior structural engineers will be going for survey work. That means it was decided that any structural engineer or any engineer who is going for the survey work is supposed to go through an orientation program. And in an orientation program, all such sorts of things, will be discussed, and how the format is to be filled up, and how, a final decision has to be arrived at. And accordingly, I think, there was an objective which was, let us say, set up for an orientation program. And the objective of an orientation program was that during visual survey, how the distress in various buildings is to be observed and documented on survey sheet, along with sketches and photographs, to have uniformity of data, which will enable us to arrive at basic objectives set up for assessing the building and advising the residents whether they can occupy the building or they are not supposed to occupy the building. And so survey sheet was prepared. This survey sheet was worked out and was discussed with Dr. Arya. And accordingly, observed conditions: minor, none, moderate, severe, collapse, building or story leaning, which is very important. See, my building is quite all right, but the adjacent building is leaning. And therefore, my building is not safe. It has to be evacuated. And then I think, your distress developed. Now see, in the first couple of days, we were having an opportunity to go through lots of buildings which were distressed. So we went through lots of buildings, took lots of pictures just to illustrate the types of the damages that has taken place, etc., etc. And accordingly, I think, we could see, so distress developed in the columns: cracks, inclined cracks, vertical cracks, buckling of bars, concrete, whether it has been crushed or not. Then distress developed in beams at the floor levels, different floor levels. That is the peripheral beams, inclined, interior beams, internal beams, etc., etc. Cracks horizontal, parallel to reinforcement, inclined near the support, vertical near the midspan, etc., etc. Then slabs. Slabs were not having much problems except the balcony slabs. Distress developed in walls, that is the partition wall, even RCC walls, lift walls, etc., etc. And then, we came out with a conclusion: no distress, minor distress, etc., etc. And this was, I think, the guidance given by Dr. Arya. Categorization scale adopted for evaluation of reinforced concrete frame buildings in Ahmedabad. Category damage, that is 0, G1, G2, G3, type up, extent of damage, then all such sorts of things are there. And keeping this in mind, I think, a damage assessment was done, or rapid safety damage assessment was done. And I think, for that, a typical damage service team consisted of, that means, we made a team, because the work was, I think, as far as the quantum was concerned, it was huge. And as far as the time was concerned, it was so small that, we are planning to make the teams. And each team will go on site of work. And, we'll try to, let us say, do the visual survey. And a typical damage survey team consisted of a senior structural engineer, a junior engineer or a senior student from civil engineering, a representative from local competent authority to identify the property to be inspected, where they were telling no. They said that we will not come because, they were afraid regarding, the behavior of the occupants. Because they were thinking that the culprit is these engineers of municipal corporations and AUDA, which was not the case, to be frank. We said that you are not supposed to do anything. From a distance, you have to show that this is the application and this is the building for this application. That's all, nothing more than that. Then cameraman and to document distress. Survey work began on 5th February 2001 and continued for almost 3 months. For first 1.5 months, the survey work was, let us say, all sheets were properly, let us say, filled in. And then I think, those who worked for a pretty long period, they were asked to scrutinize these sheets and to see that the categorization that has been given is, I think, having an objective approach. About 170 structural engineers were involved, and they came from various parts of the country, and they helped us a lot. And they were from Delhi, Calcutta, Mumbai, Indore, Pune, and our Gujarat engineers also were there. About 80 senior students, postgraduate students, at the final year of civil engineering, and postgraduate students of architecture were also involved, and 30 junior engineers were also involved. And the team was team details. So the rapid safety assessment form was having team details, building description, evaluation, distress in various structural and non-structural members, structural elements, that is frame structures, columns, beams, slabs, stairs, etc., non-structural members, and then the conclusions. And this is what was shown in the orientation program. In the orientation program, along with the formats which were supposed to be filled in, I think such distress were shown to appraise them that these are the types of the situations that you may come across, and you are supposed to, let us say, provide accordingly. You can see this one thing. Can you see? Can you see over here? The drain hook has opened out. You can see here. Now such situations were there, and we are lucky enough to document all these things within first 3 or 4 days. And at that point of time, we were not knowing that this would be useful. All these things were shown during the orientation program. You can see this. You see that hook of 90 degrees has created a problem. All hooks shall not be less than 135 degrees. Crushing of concrete. Short column effect. A diagonal crack. You can see a diagonal crack here. Wall. And AMC, I think the total number of forms received were 5,823. Duplicates were about 1,068. Total certificates issued were 4,755 in number, and categorized were G0, G1, G2, G3, G4, G5. We are not having G5 and G4 were not at all in our, let's say, scope. We are having more or less a case of G1 and maximum G2. And this is what is the whole, let us say, form where 5,823 forms were taken care of. This is for AUDA, where 2,417. So 5,800 and 4,750, 2,400. So about more than 6,800 properties were inspected and the certificates were issued by the municipal corporation. This is all that we could do, and I think that helped, and most of the people went back to their premises the moment they were issued a certificate that your building is safe for the normal vertical loads. Thank you so much. I am sure. Yes. If you have any question, or we can keep the things now for the discussions. Dr. Singhvi, Dr. Sanghvi, if you would like to discuss, probably we'll be in a position to discuss.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really pleasure to hear you and learn from your vast experience and knowledge. Let's start the question answer session. If anyone has any question, then please ask. Do anyone have any questions regarding the session?
May I know how many participants are there?
Sir, at present there are 136 attendees.
All right, fine. And most of them or all are teachers?
Yes, sir. Mostly it's for lecturers and assistant professors and professors.
Acha, acha, acha. If you have any question, please ask me the question, or we can discuss it out, because this is, I think, for the first time in the world, any institution might have worked for rapid safety assessment survey immediately after the earthquake, which I came to know after about 3 or 4 years of the work that we did. And I think Dr. S.K. Jain was very happy to discuss all these things with me.
Sir?
Yes?
Sir, I have
Yes.
one question, sir.
Yes?
Sir, actually the team is visiting the after the earthquake. Sir, but here is the aftershocks. After what time the team should visit? Because there may be some risk of again the risk of aftershocks.
Yes, yes, sir. Now see, it all
What should
depends
be the
on,
reaction time? Yes, sir.
you see, the moment you have already gone through the building earlier, and you have, let us say, evaluated a building. After shocks, you will be having, let us say, some remark somewhere that certain buildings are supposed to be, let us say, surveyed after shocks, and therefore keeping that in mind, it may not be necessary to review all the buildings, but keeping that in mind, one can, let us say, after the shocks, one can go through, and even from outside one can see, and one can see the status of the building. Is it quite all right?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Ah,
I'm audible? Hello.
hello.
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, sir. Myself, Sandeep Jhaveri, from Watching Stop Technology, Solapur. Sir, I have one question regarding structural audit
Ah,
for the assessment. Is there any standard format? Is there?
ah. Yes, sir. You see,
Because
recently, I think, recently the Association of Structural Engineers have worked out the guidelines recently. And if you just try to go through that, you will find that it is available. It is available
okay,
online. Of course, you can't take a
okay,
printout, but you can go
okay,
through the,
okay,
let us say, all necessary details. I think it might be
okay,
about 18-20 pages are there, and they
okay,
have given, I think, the guidelines for structural audit. But mind well, structural audit, I think, is a subject by itself. Up to what extent, you would like to have?
uh,
Are you supposed to go through only the structural calculations and that is the end of it?
so
Or the
from
drawings?
consultancy point of view, whenever we are going to visit, say
Uh,
water tank or some old buildings,
uh,
okay, for the
uh,
assessment purpose. So
uh,
we need some guidelines.
uh,
So that is available online. You told me just now.
now, now, this is different. That whatever I told is different. It is for the structural audit
Okay.
that normally, I think, sometimes, your municipal corporations, are asking. Or
Yes.
sometimes, depending on the nature of the project, even internally, you may have to go for a structural audit by an independent, let us say, structural engineer. Now, whatever you are talking about is that if you want to evaluate an old structure,
Yes.
then I think, you will have to, let us say, um, have a condition survey of that particular structure. Let us say an overhead water tank. Then that overhead water tank, you must have a thorough full condition survey of that overhead water tank. That is one. The second one is that in that condition survey itself, you will just try to put up lots of damages and distress which might have taken place. Then, you must have the drawings. You must have the drawings, structural drawings, of that. And then I think,
Yes.
you can just, let us say, scrutinize and check the present status of that particular structure.
Okay.
And
Yes.
before that, you are supposed to know the present properties, mechanical properties of the materials, that is concrete and steel in most of the cases that, we are having. And that can be done, I think, by uh, partially destructive test along with non-destructive tests.
Yes.
So I think,
NDT
it
test we
is,
can consider.
yes, NDT test. But NDT alone will not give you the answer, mind well. You must have a partially destructive test, because NDT is giving regarding the quality of the concrete, regarding, let us say, whether the concrete is a doubtful, whether the concrete is of a good quality, etc., etc. And your rebound hammer is also not giving the strength of the concrete. It is only giving the surface hardness of the concrete, and therefore that surface hardness cannot be, let us say, correlated 100% with the strength of the concrete. And therefore, I think, if someone is under the impression that by having two NDT, you will be in a position to, let's say, know about the strength of the concrete and the mechanical properties of the concrete, I think, that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong. It has to be supplemented by a partially destructive test.
Okay, sir. Okay. So we have to go for partial disturb test.
Yes. That means, your
Okay.
core test. You will have to go for core test.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
That's it.
Any more question, please?
Dear sir, one
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Sir, myself Subhash. Sir, at the time of assessing the earthquake damaged buildings, whether you experienced any other type of material other than concrete, along with steel or anything else, that seems to be better than this. For example, lime mortar based or any ancient binding materials.
We see, as far as the binding properties are concerned, let us take a masonry construction. Let us say for the time being, a case of a masonry construction. In case of a masonry construction that we are having, earlier we were using lime mortar. Earlier, I am talking about before about 50, 60 years.
Yes.
A lime mortar is supposed to be far better than a cement mortar, to be frank. The only advantage with the cement mortar that we are having is that you get an early strength. You are getting an early strength in the cement mortar. But mind well, cement mortar, richer the cement mortar, more shrinkage, more leakage. Your lime mortar is better, but to come in between, if you go for a composite mortar or a gauge mortar, which will give all good properties of the cement mortar and all good properties of the lime mortar, will be better. So depending on the situations and the availability of the materials that you are having, one can think about it. But if one would like to go for a conservation of the old buildings, one should not think about using cement, to be frank.
मैडम वो निकाल देते हो मार्कशीट निकाल दी
Am I clear?
Sir, that is another person.
Huh?
That's another person's voice. It's being interrupted. You tell me, sir. It's clear.
Okay. And therefore, in case of a conservation or in case of the conservation of the old buildings, old heritage building, historical buildings, architectural buildings, I think, the material that is to be used for the conservation should be more or less the same as which was used when it was constructed. If at all you would like to improve some of the properties, please try to improve the properties without affecting the properties of the main building.
Okay, sir. Okay. Sir, at the time of earthquake, all the old buildings as well as the new buildings will also get affected, isn't no, sir?
Fine.
At the same level only, the magnitude will affect all the buildings. What
Yes.
I am asking is the construction that was taken place with the help of cement as well as with the other materials, which will be the best? Is there any difference you observe from that?
No, I can just give the answer like this, that the buildings which has been properly designed and constructed, considering the relevant codal provision at that point of time, I think, has to work. But
Yes,
if we are under the impression that a building that has been designed for earthquake resistance will survive, will not get damaged, will not get distressed, is wrong. A building where you have followed all your relevant codal provisions probably, may get damaged, may get distressed, but may not collapse, and therefore the loss of life will not take place. Because mind well, the building that you are designing at a force and the force that is generated due to the earthquake there is a very wide variation that you are having. And therefore the concept is to see that the people are safe. And to see that the people are safe, the building may get damaged, but may not get collapsed.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Any more questions? Any more question, please? Okay, there is no question. Then,
sir, there is one question in a chat box.
Okay.
From Mr. The question is from Mr. Bhushan Mohan Rai Singhani, sir. That what are the scope for forensic structural engineering?
Wonderful question. I will tell you that forensic structural engineering is a must now. You see, forensic structural engineering is having lots of scopes in various areas. One is evaluation of a distressed structure, that is one. After having a proper evaluation and assessment, the another thing is that you have repairs, rehabilitation, and strengthening of structures, that is the second one. A forensic structural engineer can effectively and efficiently work as a structural engineer. Forensic structural engineer is not only that we have in mind for the courts. It is not only for the courts, earlier it was. Now the scope of the forensic structural engineers are very wide. He can work as a structural engineer. He can work for the evaluation of the distressed, damaged structures. He can work for the repairs, rehabilitation of structures. He can work for the conservation of the structures, conservation of the heritage structures, historical structures. So I think the scope is far more than a structural engineer, I would like to say. It is beyond structural engineering. Have I answered? Have I answered?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you have any further question, please ask me. See, every structural engineer, whether he will like it or not, he will need the information in this area which is not given at the undergraduate level nor given at the postgraduate level. And I will tell you that National Forensic Sciences University is the only university in the world which is offering this program. That is one. And in India, this is the only university which is offering this particular program at the postgraduate level. And I will tell you that the requirement of such programs is so huge that every state must have minimum one such university or minimum such program in the structural engineering, let's say, section.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Any more question, please? If there are no questions, so Thank you, RJ Shah, sir. It was really a wonderful session, and I think RJ Shah, sir, has worked a lot, I tell you, after 2001 earthquake. And in addition to that, I want to say that he's a master of repairs and retrofitting. He is considered to be the most genuine person in Gujarat who has worked for the repairs, retrofitting, and rehabilitation of the structures. Today, sir has delivered lecture on damage assessment, and it was really wonderful, sir. And this was the actual work carried out by the sir after 2001 Bhuj earthquake. And I think a lot of insight sir has given. And once again, thank you very much, sir. And if you, I'm really thankful to you, sir, because all participants are not knowing, but sir was tested positive for COVID, and immediately after the COVID, he is ready to give the lecture, and this is showing how dedicated person he is. Sir, once again, thank you very much for your for session and for your support all the time. As far as the age is concerned, the age of RJ Shah sir is more than 68 years or 70 years, and at this age he is so active, and your contribution definitely, sir, it's a great opportunity for all of us as a civil engineer, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Sanghvi, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. And it was,
it's our pleasure,
I think, you know, this is required on a very large scale, to be frank.
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
Such training programs are required on a very large scale. And I think LD and some such other institutes can, let's say, deal with this. And I will tell you that this has been, let us say, conducted in a very good way. This is the second, I think, isn't it, that you are doing? Yes, earlier, sir. I think, you know, we did 3 or 4 or 5 some such programs. Seven programs. Yes, sir. And this is the 8th that, you know, you are doing. It was wonderful. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity. And I'm always happy to come and share my views with my professional colleagues.
Yes, sir, it's our pleasure, and thank you once again on behalf of our team. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we take a break now, and the next session will start around 2:30. We have Dr. BJ Shah. He's principal in engineering college, and he is basically a master of structural engineering as well as the bridge engineering. So today he's going to deliver a session on ductile utility. So we will meet 2:30 sharp, take a lunch and come. Thank you very much for your attendance in this session. Thank you. Sir, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much, Sanghvi. I'm leaving now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.